There couldn't be a more fitting time for this talk, I imagine, because actually since last week, I'm currently recovering from COVID, and I'm less than a month away from my full distance Ironman race in Hamburg on June 5th. And therefore, to learn about resilience and energy management, which is very fitting indeed, today I'm talking to Isabelle Bester. Isabelle is an international speaker and executive coach, and also a specialist and an expert when it comes to energy management and resilience. And she coached many high achievers, including business leaders, but also Ironman athletes. And I want to ask you about that later, to develop resilience and manage their energy levels the most optimal. So Isabelle, I'm really happy that we can talk. We got introduced by someone who I've talked to before, Olivier, about posture first, and this indeed is a very fitting next step, the energy management and also resilience. So thanks so much, Isabelle, for being with me today. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much for the invite. Looking forward to this. Surprise, surprise.
Hey, I want to start, if that's okay, with a quick introduction, to ask you for a quick introduction, because I know you're an economist by trade, right?
Yes.
So what happened and what got you into the switch towards human development and health and resilience, especially?
Okay. So my background is marketing, and I study as an economist, but that's a long time ago, like more than 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
So I just love my job and everything. I was in a really fantastic company, but something inside of me was, how can I say that? I felt like something was missing, and I felt like I can do more and I had more potential. So basically I jumped off the boat, and nobody understood my jump, because they were like, your career is set, why are you jumping off the boat? And I was just saying, I like to be fed more at a deeper level. Yeah. And I wanted to impact the world better, and not just through creating really good product actually and selling good products on the health side. Mm-hmm. I really wanted to work more on people, and this is also where my strengths laid out, and I really wanted to focus on that. Yes. The other side of the coin, if I may say, is that I started to develop a lot of psychosomatic disorders due to high level of stress. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to feel better and also help others. It's often how it is.
Yes.
And I actually took 2 years off, and all I did was training myself, taking care of myself, things which I was not doing in my high pace job environment.
Yeah. So you started to take care of yourself. And by that, you also discovered ways that you can teach others to prevent them from making the same mistake.
Yeah. Yes, and I wanted to really have a holistic approach to it. And I at the beginning, I really focused on what I call high achievers. It could be for sports, it could be for work, but basically people that have the mindset, and I think I had that mindset, that you could only succeed through suffering. And I wanted to challenge that. I'm like, really, do we really have to perform through suffering? Is there another way that we can perform, which is not so much in the suffering field and more in a healthy zone? This is where I decided to focus, is to really develop myself and others through healthy performance.
Yes. It's interesting you say that, because this was also part of me starting, and I think of many endurance athletes, when I started training for the Ironman, it was also really pushing through. And what I've learned, I have a coach now for some time, and what I really learned is to do a lot of that low heart rate kind of training, the really long time training, but not at high intensity, actually at really calm levels. Which really builds your system and your cardiovascular capacity.
Yes, it will build both your resilience and your endurance. Now we talk a lot about sustainability, of course, about the environment, but it's got to be sustainable for yourself, because so many people really push hard, but then problems comes out later. And we know this for, I don't like to say it, but a lot of top athletes actually have a lifespan which is shorter than other people. And it's not something we talk about, but it is the truth. So it's kind of like, I'd like to reach high peaks, both in my career or we could do with sports, but I would like to do it respecting myself. And this is a really strong change of mindset.
Yeah. So what happened? Where did that shift for you? Where did the insight came that you don't have to necessarily suffer in order to perform?
I think the shift came both for myself, because somehow I felt unhappy, and I was like, we're talking about health and well-being. Of course, health and well-being is different for everybody, but I realized that my happiness was not into this suffering zone all the time.
Yeah.
And also that when people are too much in the suffering zone, then this is where you have a lot of conflicts. And at the beginning with stress, you see the best of yourself, but very quickly you see the worst of yourself and of others. And I just thought there was something else that could happen, both in teams and in ourselves, that if we don't go into this red zone and we stay in the orange and green zone, actually the whole system works so much better. Being in a team, being in a work environment, being for ourselves with the way we do sports. So for me, that was really the trigger. And you can probably see from my personality, I mean, for me, pleasure is so important, and enjoying, and actually that was the trigger for me. And I realized for many people, it's also the same trigger. And that trigger is easier to catch. and the motivation often comes from, feeling good, feeling happy, which are positive emotions. And if you experience that, then you can really break through in your life.
Yeah. So it's making the shift towards more well-being also on a mental state and a physical state. And then from there performing.
And it's also a change of mindset, because often when we talk about well-being, people think it's going to be like, oh, I am being zen or in a yoga pose. And no, I mean, for my well-being is still in a high, fast-paced environment, but it's by respecting myself and respecting others and respecting my energy levels.
Yes. So that's I think the difficult part for many people, myself including at times. How can we become attuned to our own energy levels, and when can we continue to push on a little bit, or when do we need to have a break? What is the right balance, and how do we find it?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. And for everybody it will be different.
Yes.
But I think it's always start with awareness. It's really becoming aware of the signal of your body. And sometimes we see those signals a little bit negative, but if we see them already with a positive mindset, it changes everything. If suddenly you can't sleep as good and you wake up tired, that will be a warning signal that I have to do something different. If suddenly you're more irritable with the people you love the most, that should be a symptom. If suddenly you start to do more mistakes at work, instead of feeling ashamed because of it, it's kind of like, whoa, I'm actually doing too much here, maybe. So everybody will have specific warning signs. And the more you know them, the more you see them coming, and you'll be like, okay, it's a bit like in your car. You see something coming and it's kind of like, okay, I need to do something with my car. But most of us, we keep pushing, and then the car breaks down, and then we're like, oh, the car breaks down. No, we should see those symptoms as warning signs. And if we don't do anything, you probably have experienced it yourself, the symptoms get stronger and stronger. And I keep saying about, what is my first warning, what is my second warning, what is my third warning? And hopefully we don't wait for the third warning about doing something. And people who do listen to those warnings and act upon it and accept that something needs to change, they strive. They just strive. So you kind of identify 3 levels of warnings, and you approach these signals not as something like, oh, this is slowing me down, but as something kind of you have curiosity about, and then use it as a useful signal for you to change your pace or to shift something. And even catching COVID is somehow a signal.
I know. I've been thinking about that too.
About that. So somehow this is a signal also that our immune system is lower, or some people don't catch it. So that could be a signal. And then another signal also is relationship, is how is it with our relationship, and how do we behave with others? There are hundreds of signals, and when I start coaching somebody, most of the time I start with that. How is your body talking to you, and what do you see, and what is your specific reaction.
Yeah.
And what I realized, and including myself, is that for a long time, I'll give you one of my strong signals, physical signal, which is a bit of vulnerability sharing here, which is if I have too much stress, one of my big signals is that I will develop a cold sore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the past, I used to be like hiding myself for 2 weeks, and I'm like, okay, it's very annoying, but I realize I've pushed too hard, and I will just see my cold sore as something positive for me.
Yeah.
Guess what? The cold sore heals much quicker than when I was really annoyed with it,
Yeah.
So it's also seeing what's happening to us with a more positive outlook, if I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like you said, not to see it as something, this is slowing me down, but it's actually there to teach you something and to help you shift your focus and maybe indeed slow down a little bit, and by that thrive ultimately. Yeah.
Yeah. And going that by the slowing down, as high achiever, it's quite difficult to understand that by slowing down, we gain speed.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite example is to look at steering technique in Formula One, or if you look and one of the number one steering technique on a Formula One driver, to learn how to slow down to gain speed, especially when they go through corners.
Yes.
So for me, it's the same thing. It's kind of like, what is it that I need to do to gain speed? And sometimes it's slowing down, just not for long, and just for little tiny things, and boom, you get energy back.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talk about resilience. I would love to hear from you. What does resilience mean to you personally?
Yeah. So resilience is a big word, and especially in the last 2 years, we hear this word a lot, and we hear it in the context of reactive resilience, and we hear it in the context of proactive resilience. So the difference is you can develop your resilience. Like right now, Julius, you're doing this Ironman in a few weeks coming.
Yes.
So you have to develop resilient strategy to succeed to a goal. So that will be more like a proactive approach to resilience. You can also look at reactive mode to resilience is like, okay, I lost my job, for example, and how can I develop my resilience coming from something difficult, and what can I do to rebuild myself? So you have two types of resilience. But what's important to know is that resilience is a process and it's a capacity. And because it's a capacity, it's like my glass of water here. It goes up and down, and it's something we can develop. But the end goal is that there is growth. For you, Julius, to actually doing those 39 podcasts or doing this Ironman, there'll be a factor of growth.
Yes.
And then when you look at, I don't know, like I gave the example of losing my job, is like, how can I learn from this, and how can I grow from this challenging event that I'm experiencing in my life? So for me, resilience is really the capacity not only to bounce back, but it's to really grow with change or challenge that the life is putting on us or that we're putting on ourselves to grow.
Yeah, yeah. So it's dealing with whatever comes our way in the most efficient and productive way. Is that?
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard to talk about efficiency and productivity when you go through a resilience process. I think when you go into a challenge, it's more about, again, managing your energy levels and the capacity to let go, but the capacity to go through the emotional curve. Because at the end of the day, emotions are absolutely key for energy management.
Yes.
Personally, I think is the number one battery, because it can drain us totally from a minute to another.
Yes.
And emotions comes from the root of movement. And we know that movements will be linked to energy. And another big word which is linked to emotion is motivation. So motivation and emotions are really two words that goes hands in hands. And if I want to be motivated, if I want to go through, I need to see what my emotions are happening. And And to go into a resilience process, we need to go into a movement. The second we stop and we get stuck, then our resilience is at stake because we are stuck and we don't move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, Isabelle, that you mentioned this, because it's actually what I've been experiencing in a way. That's why I think this topic now is very actual for me personally, because I was so well on schedule with my trainings, and even though I have a busy job, and then this blog project, all of it is a lot, but I was still managing well, until obviously COVID struck. And it really, I was also going through, in a way, very much an emotional downturn because I couldn't train. Also, I know from my past experience that if I don't exercise, it affects, if I don't move, as you say, it affects my well-being and my sense of well-being. And then this together with the stress about the Ironman being in 3.5 weeks, will I have enough time for this? Or, should I change my mindset? Even last night, I was looking at possibilities to postpone or to defer the race, which is not possible. I'm too late for that. It's a too short notice.
Yeah.
So I had to deal with what I will do next. Will I continue to do the race? What are the consequences with possible risk for the heart, etc. So I got all these challenging thoughts in a way, and my emotions definitely took their toll on me in this regard. Yeah. And then it's the question from how do we bounce back from this in a way that
and we don't talk enough about emotions. Often we talk about energy. We like, how can we move, how can we eat better, how we regenerate. Somehow the emotions for me is really like the trigger point. And to give a parallel example to what you're saying, I am currently coaching an amazing team, and one of the team member, she said, actually, Isabelle, high workload and high level of stress, actually I'm fine, I can handle. But right now, I'm going through an emotional roller coaster because something strong is happening in my team. And this is what is draining me. I've never took a half, what did she call, a healthy day or sick leave, a sick leave day of my life. But this is not related to workload, it's related to emotions, because emotions are extremely draining. We know that 1 minute of frustration or of a strong emotion, Julius, just for the fun of it, how long do you think it will take the body to recover from 1 minute of frustration, which I'm sure you experience since things don't go according to plan? How long do you think?
I would say probably at least more than double, maybe even triple. I don't know.
It's a tricky question I'm giving you, by the way, Julius.
I'm assuming, I'm guessing, but I think it will take more time than it actually takes to experience it, to bounce back from it.
Yeah. So basically, if you don't do anything to regulate that emotional energy, don't do anything about that, more or less the immune system to go back to where it was, it will take about 1 hour. And same thing with your heart rate. We can see that.
So for 1 minute of emotional downturn, it takes an hour, so factor 60.
Yes, factor 60. Yeah. Wow. So basically, 8 minutes of frustration in your day, it's like 8 hours gone. So you cannot fly. Oh, wow. I can understand how emotions can drain us so much. I'll give you another parallel. I have coached a lot of people who are in career transition, and some of them are like, Isabelle, normally I have this high-paced work, and now I am not working, but I have never been so tired. And I explained to them that what makes them tired is not, again, the workload, is because they have fear, anxiety about their future. And this is what drains their energy so much. So as you like tips in this podcast, there are a lot of things we can do to shorten this.
And to regulate it. I'd love to hear about that too, because you mentioned regulate.
Yes, because people will be like, great, she's telling us about this, and I don't want to, to depress anybody on the podcast. But so the good news is that, of course, you can shorten this time. And there are several strategies that you can do. to shorten this time. And I'll give you my favorite one. And my favorite strategy to shorten this, and it sounds a bit funny, but it really works, is you have to go and you have to talk with your emotion and feel it. So if you want, we can actually even do it live if you want. Julius, are you keen to do that? Yeah. So if you think about your iron, will it be okay to go with your frustration maybe or something like that? Yeah. So Julius, if you think about the fact that you've prepared for 1 year for this big event happening soon, now you called COVID and you don't really know, if you can go back and do it. When you think
more
about
than a year,
that, more than a year. I'm sorry, my mistake. So more than a year.
Yeah.
So if you think about the fact that maybe you won't be able to do it, if you want to respect yourself, if that's okay for you, close your eyes and just tell me what you feel right now, Julius. And
sad.
If you have your eyes open, you're not going to catch the emotion the same way.
No, but I think I do. I feel very sad, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know already that you feel sad. So you see, it's not even frustration for you, it's sadness already. Can you tell me, where do you feel that sadness in your body? And again, I will invite you to close your eyes, because when we close our eyes, we'll be, again, more connected with our emotions. We'll be more connected with our emotional brain. So see if you can see what's happening in your body.
I'd say I feel it in my chest and my upper abdomen.
Okay, so you feel it in your chest.
Yeah.
And stay with that feeling, Julius. Can you see if you can enhance it? Maybe there's an image coming. See if you can describe it.
It feels like tightness in the upper abdomen, I'd say.
Okay, so the main point is the upper abdomen.
Yeah, correct? And I guess also frustration, because that maybe I've pushed too much. Otherwise, as you said, maybe I would have not gotten COVID. My immune system would have been up to par and it would have just passed me, like it has done for more than a year, Yeah.
So between the frustration and the sadness, because you had two feelings, one is an uptight in your chest and the other one is something in your abdomen. Is that correct? So there's two feelings, huh?
Yeah.
So basically, there's two strong emotions right now. So we're going to, which one would you like to connect with first? And then you just tell the other, we'll talk about with you later. Which one between the two is stronger for you at the moment?
I think they're both equally strong, but let's start with the chest, the tightness there, or the
tightness there.
Yeah.
And so feel that tightness, and that tightness. What is it for you? How does that tightness? What is the message of that emotion for you? What does it want to tell you?
Maybe the first thing that just popped up, I don't know where it came from, what it said to let go.
Okay, it's coming here and it's asking you to let go. Okay, but probably there's a piece of you who's got difficulty to let go. Is this correct?
Well, I guess it's me finding it difficult to let go of the idea that I was almost ready to do this race, and even it's been really a lot. And I was even looking forward to getting it done with finally, because already in 2020 I was training for this, and then COVID started to really unfold, and I couldn't race anywhere. So this was kind of the first race after a long time, and it's kind of been determining so much of my daily life.
Yeah. So in your case, we can fully understand that it's difficult to let go, because you've put so much effort and so much determination to arrive. And it's like, maybe if I let go, I mean, how would you feel if you let go, Julius?
Well, I thought about it last night, and because I had the goal to do the Ironman under 11 hours. So I also had kind of and I don't know if that's even safe or realistic. I mean, our talk yesterday also got me thinking on the phone, and later today, I'll be talking with my coach also about this, because I don't know, like someone who I work with, he got an infected heart valve. So that's also a lot of big issues. And what I've been reading is there's risks about this. So all of this.
Yeah, that's all the kind of like the chatters which is going in your head. And that goes back to the mental energy. But if we go and we stay with your emotion, if that's all right, because we identify two emotions, there is sadness and there is frustration. Somehow you think frustration is telling you to let go, but at the same time it's telling you, well, I don't want to let go, actually. That's maybe what you feel is like, I've done so much. No, I'm not ready to let go, you know? That emotion stays with you because it's kind of like knocking on the door and saying, I'm not going to go away. So maybe see if you can connect simply with that frustration again in your chest. And what would you like to tell that frustration in your chest? Is there something you want to tell it so that it can leave you a little bit in peace? So what do you want to say to your emotion?
Maybe that I'm listening to it and that I am slowing down, you know?
Okay. So I am aware and I am listening. You are important to me. I am aware. Aware of what, Julius?
Yeah, of the need to, I guess, to change my pace.
Okay.
I guess because I have to. I mean, I've now I biked on Tuesday and I ran on Tuesday and I biked on Monday, Heart Zone 1, and it went actually very well. It felt very good, but I don't know.
Okay. So I just realized now that maybe it's not frustration. You actually labeled it as frustration, that feeling in your chest. Maybe that's the way I hear you. Maybe that emotion is not frustration. Maybe that emotion is the fear of not being able to do it, or the fear of not respecting, and the fear that something bad will happen to you if you keep pushing.
Yeah, maybe.
The message of that emotion.
Yeah.
So go back to it and simply say, thank you for warning me that there is a danger of me hurting myself if I keep pushing with my strong mental strength. But I'm aware and I'm going to respect myself, and therefore you can come down because I promise you that I'm going to respect myself if I do this race. Say that to yourself and see what happens with that emotion in your chest. Reassure that emotion that you will be careful and you will pace yourself.
Yeah, the tension subsides a little bit. Yeah, it kind of dissolves.
It dissolves. Yeah. So say thank you. Thank you for listening so much to me. And can you, what kind of feeling would you like to have now, Julius, as you're moving on?
I'd say maybe just trust and
trust. Great. So now ask yourself, please, myself, send me a feeling of trust that I can trust. I'd like to feel trust in my body. It's very important for me to move on in a healthy way. And maybe there's an image, Julius, maybe there's a feeling in your body. This is what trust means to you. And without thinking too much, you're going to feel something which represents trust for you, or it could be also a visualization, an image of something. What do you feel, Julius?
Yeah, an image came up. The sun. I climbed Kilimanjaro recently in August. Yeah. And when I came down, there was a lot of sun and it was just bright and it was okay. I reached the summit.
Very good.
I was going down, so.
Very good. So just spend a few seconds to really bring this feeling of the sun, and whatever you will do, you can really feel that sun. If you reach the summit, if you're not, you can always connect with this feeling of the sun. And really amplify this in your body. And remember that you can connect with this as you move on. Where do you feel the sun in your body, Julius?
Yeah, same place actually, here, the chest.
Places in the chest. So
Yeah.
really amplify that feeling, amplify the feeling, and say thank you. And really, like I said, always control save, like we do on Word, on Word. So save that feeling inside of yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How are you feeling now?
Yeah, I feel like I still feel emotional actually.
Yeah.
There is a shift. I feel more light in the tension is gone. Yeah. And you're right, Isabelle. I mean, this is about resilience actually. The reality is that it is as it is, so I have to deal with it. Yeah,
but at the same time, it's an internal battle with your own emotional state, and of course, I mean, for the people who are listening to us, we're not going to do a full session. Mm-hmm. There would be more emotions to go and tackle. So when we're talking about a resilience process, when something happens to us, you're going through it right now, we need to go and open the emails of each emotion. It's only when all the emotions have been able to take the microphone and tell us, and we have been able to feel them, that suddenly we can feel better and we can move on. Otherwise, we will be stuck. The emotions are going to stuck us in our process, and they're going to send us very strong message, which could be into, too much in our mind and mind racing, and that will create a big drain.
Yeah.
The more you do work like this, the better you will feel and the more resilient you will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. I mean, I think
you're welcome. I hope it was fine for the people who are listening to us. But it's just, so we went through a longer process because, it was there. But the key tip is really connect with your emotion, feel them, see them as your friend, and listen to them. What is the message? Emotions always want something good for us, but because they talk to us through unpleasant feeling, we want to actually remove them from our life. I mean, myself included, for many years, I was like, when I had fear, I was like, breathe out your fear, and actually it doesn't work. Now I'm like, amplify fear and feel it.
We have to experience it, and I've researched the topic of presence, how to arrive in the presence. And she, I can't recall her name at the moment, but she also talked about basically experiencing the emotions. And we concluded that there's an element of fear, which is accurate, I think, and it's fear about the future. So I'm in my head about the future, about this race, about work, about all these things, and actually I need to experience the emotion, and by that I can come back in the present moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is a sentence which I love, which is, feelings want to be felt.
Yes.
So feel your feelings.
Yes.
And if you feel your feelings and you accept them, they're going to calm down, and then they're not going to push again and giving you more and more emotional overwhelm, because you've just felt it and understood it, and then you can go on, and then you're not being driven by this emotion. You can really rebalance, and then this 1 hour just poof, the second you do that, poof, you reset your whole body extremely quickly. And then you go and you get a glass of water, and then you can keep on your day, and there's no more energy leakage because of it, because you plugged you plugged the hole. Yeah,
thanks a lot. I wasn't expecting this, but it is a very fitting element of, because actually what I wrote down is talking about energy management. We have nutrition. I was expecting us to be talking about nutrition. we have sleep, we have movement, as we talked, and
Yeah.
and stress.
Yeah.
But actually, it's the stressors and the emotions as a consequence of it that determines our energy levels.
I mean, I think it's a combination of all of them.
Sure.
And they are very interconnected. In the model we use, we're talking about physical energy, which is eat, move, sleep. We're talking about emotion energy, which is experiencing fear, experiencing frustration, and really understanding our emotional language.
Mm-hmm.
There is mental energy, especially with people like you, Julius, who are very mentally strong, and it's kind of like understanding how you see different things and your thought pattern. And then the fourth group of energy, which is really focusing, and that's, I saw many of your podcasts were talking about that, which is compassion, support groups, daring, asking for help, and having others that you can share with.
Yes.
And those four batteries will all help each other, because if you feel your emotions better, you will digest better, you're going to sleep better. If you eat good and you have the right nutrients, if you have enough magnesium, you will handle your emotions better. If you think more clearly and take a step back, then everything is interconnected. But when I see a person coming, I kind of like see, and with questioning, where is the hole? Where is the door? And by opening the door, everything else will be going, going around it. It's kind of like it's like a ripple effect, a positive spiral.
Yes.
Yeah. But for every person, you have to see where the energy leak is and just enter. So today for you, it's not your nutrition and your sleep, because I'm sure you're very good with that. Today for you was the emotion, your door for your energy.
Well, it's definitely true. I think that this is a spot-on assessment in the sense that that's definitely an issue. I am, however, also very curious about nutrition, because, for instance, I lost a lot of weight due to this whole COVID little event. What might you be able, or what do you have to share in terms of nutrition? I mean, sleep, I think we all know 8 or 9 hours of sleep, but what can you say about nutrition? Because I'm also very curious about that.
Yeah, and it is such a big question. And my approach to nutrition is that everybody is so different. So I don't want to tell you, well, focus on protein or focus on your breakfast. The story is that it's not that easy. I'll need to probe you with questions to understand how your body works. And then you can give advice which are very specific oriented. We can't do just like one thing fits all. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. And we know that, because otherwise everybody would gain weight or lose weight just like that. But it's not, it's much more complex. What I know from my experience is that whenever I follow somebody with nutrition, I start with science, and I start with something which is very crystal clear, both for the person and for me, which is I will start by doing a biological assessment. We've developed, and I work with also a company where we know the key elements for performance. We're not looking at symptoms, we're looking at key vitamins, key minerals. We're going to look at fatty acid, key things that will help not only physical performance, but also intellectual performance. And when you have a very good picture and you're like, whoa, I talked about magnesium, is such an easy one. I am missing magnesium. I understand so much better why I get angry quicker than I am. With my people at work and with people at home, I understand better why I am tired all the time, etc., etc. So for me, it's very important to really have a tailored view for each person, because then the advice will be spot on. And then you do not much effort, and boom, your energy goes back up. So that would be what I would say to do. It's really focus on where you are and understanding where is the gap.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answer your question, and I'm sorry, there's not like.
Well, no, I understand.
Answer, but that's the angle I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
perhaps then, is there any book that you can recommend on this part that comes to mind that you really liked?
Yeah. So in English, I don't know. I'll have a very good one in French. It's quite technical though. But in English, nothing comes to mind. In French, I have quite a few that I can recommend. But if I have something that comes to mind after,
Sure.
I'll really let you know, and you can put it on the podcast.
I'll share it in the links.
Yeah. Even the French books that I'm talking about, I'm happy to share.
Yeah. I know that there are some people also in Switzerland from the French part who are following this. So
who are following this podcast.
Will be helpful to them.
Yeah. Very good.
You're coaching also high performance endurance athletes. And as I've learned through my own experience while training, but also from my research, I interviewed the world champion at 72 years old, Ironman long distance, or triathlon long distance, and he's completed so many Ironmans. He told me, and as I've experienced, and also my coach, the fourth discipline is really nutrition. So is there something that you can share with regard to energy management during the race? Not only, we've talked about energy management like as an overall thing to life, but during endurance sports.
Yeah, so during endurance sports, it's the same thing actually with when you work for many hours as well, you know. So there are a few things that you can do. Of course, I mean, it's such an obvious thing, and you saw me here with my water during this interview. But it's of course is to keep your hydration level. But when you are doing endurance, unfortunately, water won't be enough. And that is something which is very important to know, that you'll need to hydrate yourself, both with sugar and with salt. You can mix both. There's electrolytes, specific things, but the energy drinks is such a broad thing, but it's to keep yourself hydrated with the right electrolytes, with the right minerals and everything as you go along the race. And same thing with food, to make sure it's highly digestible food. And again, it comes back to each person will digest things differently. So there's again not one thing that fits all. Some people will do some stuff, and the other person does exactly the same thing, and it won't work because they won't digest it. With water, hydration is kind of like something which is more like broad. And even, you know, I go back to the business meetings, you know, sometimes we want to avoid sugar, but I said to people, sometimes even to have a little bit of apple juice in your water, something as simple as that, you just give a tiny bit of sugar, which is just giving the right level of energy and not peak of sugars. And that will just keep the sugar level in the right place. It's just like a tiny thing, but we kind of like almost like, no, don't drink juice because it's too sugary. It is true, but if you're going through endurance, you need to have a tiny bit of sugar all the time. Yeah, that's maybe something that I would share that would be helpful for people to know.
The carbohydrates, it's really essential during
essential. And other things as well, you know, of course, again, the magnesium level and other minerals like this, because we lose it so much, especially when we go through endurance. So we need to make sure that the body is refurnished enough as we go through.
You mentioned before we started the recording, you talked about the interviews you were having actually today and also yesterday, I think. And we spoke about holding the space, or you mentioned this for a moment. And I'd like to touch upon it because it's interesting to me. I think also what we just did with regard to my feeling about the current situation and COVID is also in a way holding the space, right, with myself. I'd love to hear some pointers and some tips that you might be able to share about this process, how we can do this, one for ourselves, but also for the people in our lives that we aim to support, because I think it's really important. It's an important skill, and it's not an obvious skill for everyone.
Yeah, it goes back to awareness, and actually the word that I will link to that is listening. So it's listening to ourselves, but it's also listening to others, to be better listening to others. And we're sharing when we started this, just before we started the podcast, that, I mean, as Goethe said, listening is an art. It's really something which is asking like a plain focus. And most of us, we are bad listeners, and we just need to be aware of what it is to really listen. It's to really hold the space, but to give the space for somebody and just to be there. And simply by doing this, it's actually helping the person to regenerate their energy when they finally can talk to somebody and express, because that would regulate the emotional state. And for the person who is actually listening, just to know that, just being there for the other person helps them to feel better. And when we feel like we help somebody to feel better, we feel better automatically. So I think that we don't really think about that, about energy management and listening. But for me, this is like a key skill. It's to learn to listen better to ourselves and to others, and then we'll have more energy. Yeah, maybe that's a little. It's a nice conclusion, actually.
Yeah, so it's a two-way thing. We also benefit from giving someone else our attention.
Yeah, and I mean, the second somebody hear us, because there is so much frustration because we don't feel heard.
Yes,
and we are very much in this world which is very fast-paced, and we often don't take the time. And in my job, I have the opportunity to work with a lot of managers and developing their management skills. And for me, listening is such a big one. And a lot of them are saying that, Isabelle, I don't have time to listen. And I'm like, it's the same thing as with your energy. Is like, if you take 5 minutes to breathe and you will regenerate. Well, if you take 5 or 10 minutes to listen to your people, yes, maybe it's half an hour you listen, but you invest half an hour and the person has so much more energy, that will be so much motivated. So actually it's such a good investment. It's like, oh yeah, I didn't think of it like this, but it is true. So
so listening and giving someone or undivided attention.
And really just giving the space.
And by that, holding the space,
of course. And it's very hard to listen. I would say, I'll share with you the 3 top obstacles to listening, because I think it's important. So number one I would share is that very often when we listen to somebody, we jump to conclusion and we want to find solution for them. So for example, Julius, in your case, I would have been like, but come on, Julius, take care of yourself. And I will be instructing you instead of just asking you and giving you the time and space to find your own solution. So instructing others, even though it comes from good intention, is actually showing that you're not really listening properly. You don't give the space to the other person. Another one is that when the other person talks, we think of something that we would do and we interrupt. And it sounds so silly, but we interrupt all the time. And it's not so easy to focus on not interrupting. And I'm just sharing with you because I think it's funny. I know that this was one of my main listening blocks, because I have a lot of ideas and I want to share so much. So I tend to interrupt. So it became an unconscious thing in my head that I interrupted without realizing. So I asked my husband that when we are at dinners, if I interrupt, or if he sees me interrupting people, if he can just touch my leg just like that, just gently. And by doing this, he helped me being more aware and to listen more. And right now he's touching my leg less and less, actually, because I get better at it. But
so you're making progress.
Yes. And I will say also the last one, because I promised 3. So another obstacles is that sometimes we when somebody shares their sorrows or shares something which is tough for them, we want to help the person to be back in the positive. So instead of really giving the space for that difficult emotion, what we tend to do is to say, hey, but I'll give you an example with COVID. Oh, you know, I'm in Switzerland, but I'm feeling lonely and I can't do, and I'll be like, a bad listener will be like, but come on, Julius, we are lucky here. Look at what happened in Italy. Look like it happens in the UK. We are so lucky here. So I'll push the person into a positive, but actually it's not helping. It's not helping you because you haven't felt heard in your loneliness or whatever. So we have to be careful sometimes by wanting to be too positive. We actually put people away because we're not good listeners. And we drain the energy again.
Yeah, and it's like before with the experiencing of the emotion, when we do such a thing, we don't acknowledge their emotion as full. And
yeah, because it's uncomfortable to stay with a person who's going through difficult emotions. Yeah. But once we have tips and tricks and we will get more comfortable with it, and we realize that we shouldn't be scared of those difficult emotions, and not the opposite is when we go through it that we are going to build our resilience. It's not by numbing sadness, it's not by numbing fear, it's not by numbing whatever frustration that we are going to develop resilient skills. It's by experiencing, listening, and going through the emotions that will go on the other side. Yeah. And also, people can help us do that.
Yeah, very much. Yeah. By allowing us to go through the experience without judgment and indeed holding the space.
Exactly.
Yes.
And by listening.
Yeah. Without coming up with solutions or
exactly, which is hard. It's very hard. We are solutions wired machine. Yeah.
My last question,
go on,
Isabelle, and I like to end with this one. I always do it. Is there one question about energy management? I'm sure there are many, or about resilience that I didn't ask, which I definitely should have asked, a particular angle that I've missed.
I don't know. We talked about a lot of things. I think the link to the heart. You didn't ask any question, but I think that at the end of the day, it's a heart thing. When our heart and our mind are aligned, this is where we strive in life. And it's very important to make sure that the heart and the mind are connected, and then we can strive. If I take again your example, Julius, because you started this podcast with that, and tell me if it's true, but it seemed that your mind wanted to really do this Ironman, and you want to keep pushing and still having this objective and you're not letting go. That your heart was kind of like telling you, I'm not so sure, I'm scared for you, but if you start to align those two together, then you can make a conscious decision, and then you can strive better. So I think the role of having those two align is absolutely key, because then we align and we can be aligned with our life and with other people.
Yeah, it's a beautiful conclusion. And I very much second it. We need to align much more our hearts and our minds, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
I was going to say thank you so much, and it was surprising but a lovely experience. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much, Julius, and I hope it was impactful and useful for the people who listened to us today.
Yes. I'll share with you later when the write-up is ready also. I think my deadline is coming Saturday, so I have some writing to do.
You should say milestone and not deadline.
True, my milestone, yes.
Milestone is a more positive word for your brain.
My milestone is on Saturday.
Sorry, I shouldn't say that. It was too obvious for a positive guy like you to use the word deadline. I mean, the second you hear dead, it's like, oh, no, I don't want to hear that.
Hey, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Julius, and we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely, we will. Bye. Okay. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you. Bye. Bye.